This is new and now.
It's flashback ons. I think we're live.
We are.
As
As I
old
always say, in living color.
Foghorn Leghorn would say, let the bells ring and the banners fly. It's too good to be true, but we're on the air.
We are on the air. Well, Bob, we had probably the longest pre-production we've had in a while.
Well, I think we aptly ran into every known conceivable roadblock, and I think you're probably right. Entitling this the I Don't Know series is probably very apt.
Yeah, it is. I don't know episode because all the things that are going on when we question it. So I don't know.
And it's not for lack of trying. Gosh, we spent a long time trying to figure out exactly what it is that we would like to expound upon and at least provide a solution. But I think even if we were at the top pay grade here, I think that some of it would still be beyond that pay grade because there are things going on here that probably only a select few people know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, at the top of the hit parade today is I don't know why, after 84 years, Canada and the US are going to suspend military cooperation.
Well, according to our illustrious Prime Minister, that's the thing that only happens a couple of times a year anyway, so it's not really a big deal. And as you have aptly pointed out in many productions before, if that's the case, I think I have some land that I can sell you in Florida, but we'll have to go there at very specific times. Perhaps that bridge behind you might be for sale that we can offload to a few people.
Yes, the famous Blue Water Bridge, which carries now more traffic than the Detroit Ambassador Bridge does because people got greedy over there and are charging truckers so much money they're actually driving north another 50 kilometers or so to cross the Port Huron Sarnia Bridge to save money. Meanwhile, the Gordie Howe Bridge is still not open because thanks to the intransigence of certain people on both sides of the border, they are arguing about when it should open and how it should open and so on.
Well, and again, that is kind of the little microcosm of the issues that we've been having here over the last year since the current occupant of the Prime Minister's office has taken over. And he has taken great pains over this last year to poke the bear in the stomach, in the eye, in the ear, whack him on the butt with a stick, do whatever he can. And it's just, I think things are starting to have implications and ramifications. Yeah, I think this whole thing that you said, the canceling of 8 decades of an agreement, well, not canceling, it's the suspension of, not to say that it couldn't come back, but, is this kind of a watershed moment? Have we reached a critical mass? How many other analogies did we come up with pre-production on this? Are we standing on the edge of a precipice looking down at the great abyss? I don't know. And hence, that's why we came up with the theme for the talk today.
Yeah, because we don't know. We don't know what happened in the inner circles of Pentagon to determine this agreement.
Although you hit, I think, a bit of a nail on the head there, pre-production, when you said it's very strange. This is all coming to a head after a visit of President Trump with President Xi, and you now have President Putin in Beijing now. Um, I know when I worked, I never liked coincidences. And there's just far too many little coincidences that are happening right now that make me feel a little uncomfortable.
Well, this permanent joint board of defense is one of those cornerstones of the relationship between Canada and the United States that is in the background. Doesn't make the news every day, but it's part of what fused the two countries militarily, and it is part of the NORAD setup as well. People don't really grasp what is going on here at the moment. I think it's just too new a news item. But I mean, let's understand that what we're doing more than poking the bear here. Who's
Yeah.
now reacted? Okay, you had this what I call the Carney Doctrine exposed in Davos in January, where the Prime Minister made this very lengthy and damning commentary on the relationship between the United States and the other big influential countries, basically Russia, China, and said that has to stop because there's going to have to be a new world order as he saw it come about because the situation wasn't to his liking. Then that he was going to lead a whole bunch of middle powers around the world to upend that relationship between the players that have essentially managed the world since the Second World War. So to suddenly have that blow up into a situation where deep in the bowels of the Pentagon, it was decided that that speech, compounded by the speech he made in Beijing a couple of weeks later with the same theme. It's a straightforward anti-American speech where he once again underscored the new world order to the Chinese, much to the, I would think, the chagrin of President Xi, who knew that at some point President Trump was going to be gracing his presence. And one can only wonder what discussions took place following the Carney visit between the White House in Beijing, and once the president showed up and had a tete-a-tete with the Chinese leader. At the same time, while this is going on, you've got the Iranian crisis, more than a crisis. It's a kinetic situation there. There's lots of bombing and so on. You have the situation in Cuba, where while Mr. Trump is in Beijing, one of Mr. Xi's pals and friends in the Caribbean is being visited by none other than the CIA chief, who's reading the riot act to the Cubans, who are living in the dark because of sanctions and because of getting no energy, oil, whatever from Venezuela, because the head of Venezuela, who ran basically that the cabal between Havana and the Caracas, is in jail in New York. And so, what did Mr. Xi have to say to Mr. Trump while he was in uh, Beijing? Interesting. And what did Mr. Trump say to Mr. Xi about what Mr. Carney was doing there a couple of weeks earlier, bad mouthing him? One can only surmise that there were some discussions that took place that we can suggest were telegraphed back to Washington. And then a week after the trip, suddenly the relationship between Canada and the US on the military level drops like a stone.
It's got a little more than frosty.
absolutely. And so the litany of things you said about the strategic partnership that Mr. Carney wanted to do with Beijing. I don't know what kind of strategic partnership he's talking about. When the strategic partnership is between Washington and Beijing. Moreover, I'm quite sure, without any intel that they've told me about or you, that probably Mr. Trump told Mr. Xi, stay the hell out of the Western Hemisphere. Okay. I've already told you that we've dealt with Venezuela, we're dealing with Cuba, stay the hell out of Nicaragua. And by the way, that big pink part on the map that is to the north of us, suggest you stay the hell out of there too. Probably not the same language that I'm using, but I think fairly clear. When you know that the Americans have passed legislation bilaterally between the Democrats and the Republicans to ban any Chinese cars entering the US, even if it's a tourist from Canada or Mexico going to drive their Chinese EV. Ain't going to happen. That sends a message. Uh, when the Ottawa gang was happily undermining, Trump's Abraham Accords, they weren't happy with that. Uh, when they were funding the Hamas-led UNRWA people, Americans weren't happy with that. When they can't make up their minds on what they're going to do with the F-35s, maybe we'll buy 18, maybe we'll buy 80. We're going to buy those Griffins or whatever the devil they're called from Sweden. That probably didn't make him very happy. You always like to talk about the Greenland consulate where there's 16 Canadians living on that ice mass, and we have a consulate, but for I do not know, or the consulate in Fiji. That's what we talked about last week. When you run negative ads about the U.S. government in the United States, uh, this is not helpful, whether it was done by his pal Ford or not. The whole business of the millions of folks coming into Canada who we don't know much about and can't seem to get rid of when we do find them, if we find them, that seems to cause.
And as we've also mentioned now too, that's going to become another algorithmic level higher because apparently some people can come in as men, change themselves to women, and get documentation to. And how are we going to be able to track that?
Oh yeah, well, and never mind. You have that, and you have the creative accounting on Excel sheets on whether Canada meets the 2% threshold in NATO or not. When we throw in Transport Canada airplanes and the Coast Guard or whatever, and suddenly we got this big military out of nowhere.
Well, we also have forgotten too that we didn't plant the 2 billion trees that we had initially thought under the former prime minister. But whatever we did plant now might be considered militarily as camouflage.
And then to top it all off, our illustrious British passport holder prime minister says Canada should join the European Union and be part of their military defense pact. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So why are they doing all this? The answer is,
I don't know.
I don't know.
Again, yeah. I guess maybe because we have, oh God, what is our national debt now? It's somewhere in the $300 trillion or something, isn't it?
Yep, yeah.
And if this whole thing ever came into working realm, we would have to assume some of the EU debt, which is sitting at something like 900 trillion. Why would we do that? And again,
well, we're just two guys, trying to figure things out, and we don't know, why we're obsessed with a government with things that most Canadians are not obsessed with. Why are we obsessed with Ukraine? I don't know. What is the strategic value of all that when the Hatfields and the McCoys are beating the hell out of each other, Russia and Ukraine? What is it?
I don't know.
I don't know. Why do we?
And I guess the other big thing that we've got now with the I don't know is why is it that we now have this is it just let's roll this up the flagpole, see who stands and salutes by saying, in order to get capital investment in here, we're going to sell off our land ports and our sea ports and our airports. And what's in the news? A big thing about how to handle your luggage now, because you could find out that your little trip to Jamaica is going to land you in jail because some guy in the airport smuggled drugs unbeknownst to you.
Well, for you and I who had spent a long time dealing with that kind of stuff, this is astonishing that there's 17 Canadians who have been arrested around the world for importing drugs that's not their drugs because out of Pearson Airport, a gang's been operating under the noses of the RCMP, the CBSA, and whoever else, and they've been switching tags on people's luggage. So when they get off the plane, it's not their luggage, it's somebody else's dope. Now, the people that got caught clearly at the other end, the professionalism of the crooks at Pearson didn't match the professionalism of some of the folks at the other end because the dope never got to where it's supposed to go. But, you
And of
know,
course, the old, this isn't my, it's not mine. Yeah, that's what every crook says.
I know, but
I've been
that's
framed.
exactly right. And so this is again what has happened to Canada. Are you telling me that the airports are run by people who are baggage handlers or actually part of the drug cartel? Because that sure does start to look like it, And we just this weekend we've had one stinky news report after the next. The other one that caught my attention it was three Toronto Metro cops have been arrested in Spain for abusing and assaulting essentially prostitute there. They were arrested and have been sent back to Canada, or at least two of them have been, and they've been suspended from. But what the hell is going on here? Like what is happening to our law enforcement community? What's happening to the whole ethos that we have about law and order when the very
I don't
people we're
know.
supposed to be, I don't know.
You know, I just
So,
I, I just think my grandfather who lied about his age to join the expeditionary force in World War One, probably not out of any great patriotism. It was more probably a monetary thing. My father, having to wait until his 18th birthday to go and join the armed forces, and probably more to do with patriotism than money. But if they could come back now and see what's happened to this country that they had fought for, um, they would be shaking their heads.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, this is like an open spigot of craziness that is coming down the pike, and if you try to connect the dots, you still end up with, okay, so what's the end result here? And
I don't
the
know.
answer, I don't know. Like, why are you wrecking the place? What is your
I don't know.
what is your mission here? Um, so it's I think that this particular case, which is yet to be commented on by the White House, but this clearly has their approval because it wouldn't happen. Is another shot across the bow, and we were musing about what next coming out of the U.S. when they get really annoyed with Canada. Uh, if they if the extremists, let's just use that term for a minute, in politically in the U.S. go, I don't trust Canadian politicians or Canadian leadership in government. What's this? What's to say that the sanctions aren't going to be put on them when they want to travel to the U.S. and say, well, we don't trust these people. Okay.
Yeah,
What's to say that the U.S. is going to turn around and say, maybe Canadians need to understand that. Well, we did this program once. We did one episode on we're not special anymore. What if they decide that in order for us to as Canadians to travel the US, you need a visa. Just like if you were from China or if you're from Russia, you need a visa because, we don't trust you.
And let's throw a little monkey wrench into that too. We are now the 19th of May. We're 6 weeks away from the Kuzma, USMA, whatever you want to call it, the free trade agreement renewal. And if this comes into being, how are our illustrious leaders going to be able to get to Washington to plead our case? I don't know.
Well, I don't know. He was he was asked what he thought about this issue, and he said, "I wouldn't get too worked up about it. It's being overplayed." I think, are you kidding me? This is the best you can do, which suggests to me, sadly, that I don't think he really grasps the seriousness and the implications of something that might be picayune to him because maybe he has no real understanding of any military relationship between Canada and the United States, you know. But this has serious overtones here, you know.
This
And
isn't a matter of putting
it
things
isn't
on a
about bourbon
spreadsheet
not crossing
and
the border.
moving things around. You know, this is real meat and potatoes kind of stuff, and it's not theoretical, it's not hypothetical, it's not some economic theorem that you can expound upon and expect it to go right. You're dealing with human beings who, at the best of the time, are not predictable.
And he's ignoring the fact that, apart from that, we've had more Canadians emigrate to the US this year than ever before in the history of the country. They're just leaving Canada. We've lost over $1 trillion in investment that's leaving this country. The inflation rate is 2.8%, which is not sustainable for for the for the population. Gas here is $1.89 a liter right now. That's not sustainable. I don't care whether it's Iran's uh, impact on prices. Not This is not sustainable. When 30 cents of that is taxes that the Carney regime has put on,
Well,
that's
you're
not
lucky it's only
sustainable.
30 cents because we're out here at $2.30 a liter, of which a good 70 to 80 cents is
And that's
provincial
not
fed.
sustainable. Okay. At what point does the population re- revolt? I can't think of any other word. And the answer to that is I don't know,
Mhm.
once again. But sometimes these things just become organic and take on a life of their own, and no one seems to be paying attention at the top. And we laugh about this business about the Canadian travelers being arrested leaving out of Canada because they have their bags swapped out for dope instead of their underwear and their luggage. That shows that there's a certain amount of incompetence and corruption that is going very deep into the psyche of the system. This is maybe laughable on its face, but it's actually sends a message because if you can have a bunch of hoodlums running the baggage handling systems at Canada's number one airport, then what's to say that the influence of Chinese secret police in this country isn't operating at the same level? Because no one's paying attention. I'm just throwing that out because I
Well,
don't know.
and again, that falls under the I don't know, but it's also why won't Canadian law enforcement people talk about what they are supposed to do and not supposed to do with the Chinese police who may or may not be here uh, because we don't want people to know.
We also don't know, did did President Trump raise this with President Xi? We don't know. But I suspect that somebody knows. And They are making decisions as we speak. I don't think this particular rupture that our prime minister likes to use that word all the time, a rupture between Canada and the United States. This this is this is a this is a much bigger one than, like I said, no bourbon is going to cross our lips in Canada until we solve this problem.
Didn't really
Uh,
work well in prohibition, but
no, it didn't at all. But anyway,
yeah,
so that's it for today. I don't know. This is the I don't know edition because there's
we
so
really
much
don't know.
we really don't know. But I think we do know that this isn't going to end well if this isn't dealt with.
Yeah, it might be, it might simply be a case where the prime minister is right and this is being overplayed, but I don't think that's the case.
No,
You've got a very, very large neighbor who has perhaps a sledgehammer that at this point has chosen to use a little Brad hammer. And, if you don't start, to sit up and take notice of these things, then yeah, we have no idea where this is going or what the
no, I'm not,
implications will be.
and I think this time it's not just geopolitical. This has now become kind of like a virus, which can spread to all sorts of other parts of the relationship between two peoples who never had a problem. See, I nobody asked us voters, should we get into a tip with our neighbor? Like this was never talked about during the
No.
election. These are things that are happening now, which basically have become like a runaway train, a runaway train that nobody seems to want to figure out how to stop. And what disturbs me about this is that while nobody would have said, no, we will stop any divestment or diversion of our resources to other places simply to expand our ability to trade and so on. That was never part of the deal. Nobody brought that up. Nobody said we're going to cut off our nose to spite our face. This is precisely what we're doing. And again, what's the end game here? We don't know. And then there's all kinds of other things boiling under the surface here. In your neck of the woods, you still have the whole business with First Nations and who owns property rights and so on and so forth. You have this complete and utter con job of the Albertans over the referendum and also the pipeline deal. None of which is clean and tidy. It's quite messy. Uh, then you have the shrinking automobile manufacturing base in this province. It's dying each passing day.
Yeah,
One small company after the next is going belly up. You have a situation in Newfoundland where the Newfies have come to their senses and said, I don't think we're making another deal with Quebec where you take off, most of our money for our resources. And then they're stuck between a rock and a hard place as well because their number one trader partner was sending electricity to the U.S. out of the Churchill Fall. So there is again a mess that is brewing, and again, how are they going to fix that? I don't know. But clearly, the status quo is not working there.
well, I don't think the status quo ever really held forever anyway. And maybe we're just, as you said on many occasions on this broadcast, maybe we live in interesting times, and I think it's finally coming to fruition that these are very interesting times, and they may not be good interesting.
Well, we have to be positive. Spring has sprung, uh, and we had our first nice weekend here. Uh, with great weather. Uh, so it's maybe the summer will be a hot one because the winter was pretty miserable.
Yeah. Now, for some people, like our family in Alberta, we're still getting snow.
Really? All right, we say we're going to cut this. We're going to do this a short one today. So we're going to
So,
zip it here.
here we are on the west coast to the central part of Canada with the We Don't Know.
The We Don't Know edition.
We
By
hope
the
that
way,
somebody out there does know and would be more than happy to
let us know.
let us know.
Anyway, you can see this as our new backgrounds. We thought we'd spice things up a little bit. You know where you can find us: YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere you want to hear your podcast. If you want to buy us a copy, that's still there. Uh, and maybe we'll put a little sign up for the next broadcast in the left-hand corner or the right-hand corner of where you can do this. But I think everybody knows where you can find us because we're here, and we've been doing it for 5 years. But, you know, it's not exactly what do you call it, a Juno Award-winning program yet.
Oh, I don't know. I had a very good dream last night that that we had actually won something like that. But you know, it was just that a dream, I guess, because
Oh,
I don't know if that would ever come to fruition.
okay. But for others, imagine that. They thought that we're that good that we would contribute to that. Sort of thing. I don't.
Well, I've been told I'm a legend in my own mind on many occasions. So
There you go. All right. Well, you have a great week, Bob.
you too, Tom.
We'll catch up with you on the weekend. By then, I'm sure this Black Swan event will have more implications.
Well, and there are still other things out there that we're waiting for the shoe to drop.
Indeed. We're never without something to grouse about.
Yeah, that's right.
For those of us in We Don't Know land, adios.
Yeah, and to keep up with our bilingual content, add you. Je ne sais pas.